one of the things that we always try to do is we always call it like concierge service, right? Like we want to make sure that our customers, whether it be our internal customer, external customer, sales partner, whatever it is, it must be easy dealing with us, because if it's difficult, it's people. It's not. That's not freedom. You know what I mean? If I'm struggling dealing with you all the time, so you gotta make it simple for people to do business with you. Is one thing.
Or
I always remember.
any sort of thing, right?
Right.
To do business, or like when you're teaching them, all right, well, how do you go and do the things that we talk about?
Right.
What's the first thing that they can start testing? What's the smallest thing?
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's I think one of the things that everybody misses is they look for the big answer. Like, we work with a lot of salespeople, and a lot of, especially new salespeople, they just want to know some magic answer. You know, just give me the magic words. Of course, that doesn't work. And even if you give them magic words for a situation, well, the next situation is not the same situation. So it's different magic words. It's different magic words for all. So, you know, magic doesn't really work. It's really, you know, it's little by little understanding. It's like in the first scenario, like you give them a little magic words and they go, oh, that really worked well.
Right.
Now they have a choice. They can either go, all right, I'm just going to wait. I'm going to follow this person, and I'm going to follow Chuck, because next time I get in a jam, he's going to give me the magic words. Meanwhile, they don't own it. You know, they don't. You know, like freedom is, I think, is owning the game. It's ownership. It's you take. It's like you stand up. It's like at some point you have to stand up, right? You've got to take responsibility and learn this stuff. And it's just a different way of operating, instead of, again, following. You know, how many people, you look at, kind of step back and look at what a lot of people do today, and they're following. Oh, I'm listening to this podcast. Well, like us, right? But hopefully we're giving you something that's usable. You know, they're tools that you can use. But, you know, it's like, God, you know, it's just following. How many people do you follow? And if you don't like what we're talking about, please unfollow us. You know, unsubscribe. Get rid of all the stuff that doesn't really. You know, but they on and on and on. And every time somebody puts out something new, you know, imagine following 10 places, and every time they come up with something new, you get a notification.
Right.
You know, getting, you know, yeah. Anyway.
It's too much.
Anyway, so yeah, it's too much. But anyway, back to the point. The small things. What are the smallest things? What are the very smallest things that I can test? And I go, okay. And then reflect about how that worked, how to go, what should I try next time? And now I'm ascending, I'm rising, you know, I'm becoming, rather than hoping, or rather than following and doing, you know, what magical people or supposed magical people tell you to do. But when you start owning it, little by little, you get to become, you get to, you know, it's like having a quiet, strong core,
right?
You know? Where you have this confidence that you have an understanding of what's going on, and it's not one of those two that just works today. It's you're paying attention over the journey, right? It's
well, and you're critically thinking, right? Like, you ever give a young person advice, and they just, and I'm going through this right now.
I've stopped.
You're right, because you go, it's so fresh. But what's interesting is, it's amazing, and all the young kids will tell you, or like, let's say mid-20 kids will tell you, it's amazing how smart my parents got once I moved out of the house. It's like, well, you know what I'm saying? It's like,
my grandpa used to say stuff like that too, you know.
But it's true.
Never realized how smart
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, but it's adults too. You know, it's amazing.
Right.
And, but you know, today there's a lot of people. There's a lot of know-it-alls.
Right.
There's a lot of know-it-alls.
Right. Well, I think let me give you a really good example that I think really dovetails into what we've been talking about. Where, you know, it's kind of like, you know, people want the magical answer. Like, give me the magic words, give me the magic script. And I've heard that for 3 decades. Everybody thinks it's just a script they need. And it's like, no, I want to teach you to understand the dynamics of everything that's going on. Because once you understand the dynamics and you have those tools to deal with things that are going on, you can deal with a lot of different scenarios. Because a lot of times the script is for one scenario. Well, you're going to deal with 1,000 different scenarios throughout your career dealing with people. So you have to have a general understanding. And one of the things that I was taught years ago that was really effective on how to deal with like objections, for an example. And one of the things is called feel, felt, found, right? Now, if you understand feel, felt, found, then it helps you deal with a lot of different scenarios, right? It's not just a script to deal with one objection, it can deal with thousands of objections. Right. And, feel, felt, found is real simple. It's like, because people want it, and let's look at the psychology behind it. We all want to be understood, right? We all want to know that you understand. I want to know my salesperson gets what I'm saying. So, and yet people also want solutions. So, feel, felt, found. You know what, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, I know exactly how you feel because I felt that way. And then you might give them just a little example of when you felt that way too. But what I found is, and then you can present a solution to them. Because what it does is it softens it, right? Like if you just come in with an objection and I go, well, no, what I found is blah, blah, blah. It almost comes off like argumentative, right? My objective is I need to align myself with them so they understand, I know how they feel. You know what, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, I know exactly how you feel. Because you know what, I felt that way because one time this happened. And they go, oh yeah, you do understand. But there's always a but or the caveat, right? Because this is answering the objection to put their mind at ease. But what I found is this, and then you lay out a solution for them. That is a much softer delivery than just getting, like this, right? If you get head to head, no one wins. It's not a head to head scenario. I'm on your side. Yeah, sure, I'm making money doing this transaction. It's my job. But in our business especially, these are long-term relationships. These aren't like, hey, I strong-armed you into buying a car and then you take off and I never see you. This is a long-term deal. That's why we have passive income, right? So you put the time in to do it right. And feel, felt, found is dug me out of a lot of weird little objections and scenarios.
Even bar fights in the back of the staircase disco. Hey, I understand how you feel. Right? I felt that way when the other guy moved in on my girl and the dance floor last week too, under the big mirror ball. Yeah. I heard something the other day where regarding scripts. I forget where it was. It wasn't the other day. It was a couple weeks ago. And somebody, a sales trainer, a supposed, like somebody you'd see online, a sales trainer, said scripts. Yes, absolutely. If Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, he rattled off, use scripts, then if they're using a script, then of course you should use a script. And I thought that is so one of the stupidest things I've ever heard in my life. Because of course they're given a script. Do you think they go off the script or are they an actor? They're an actor. They're given a script. Hey, this is where we're trying to go with it. They're, what are they called? Method actors. Like they're going to bend it. They're going to become, right? They're going to understand it. And it's a story that they're playing out, but they're going to understand the character and they're going to understand why they're saying it and what all's going on, in the play or movie or whatever they're doing. And but they didn't talk about that. They just said script. Yes, absolutely use one. I thought, that's just ridiculous.
My question to that is, okay, Mr. Pacino or De Niro or whomever you are. So when you're following the script, is the guy on the other side that you're communicating to during this little court gesture
thing? This is Mr. Sales Trainer. This is hotshot sales trainer.
Right. That's what I'm saying. But that's what I mean. Yeah, the other guy's following the same script, dude. Okay, when you call a customer, what's really funny about it, they don't know the script. Only I know the script. So,
but the other actors do. But so it made no sense whatsoever.
Yeah,
it's like one of those points that go, yeah, that makes sense. But it doesn't make any sense at all when you start looking at it from a couple different perspectives.
Right.
Like so much, so many things you hear today. You go, wow, that really makes sense. No, think about it.
Hey.
Before you follow anybody, they go, well, yes, before you follow what we talk about. Think about it, test it out. Look at it from a couple different perspectives.
Right.
Yeah. Well, don't follow. Figure this out. We try to give you tools, right? And it's like, okay, like this stuff that Chuck was just talking about with, so to understand, because feel, felt, found is old. It is not a new technique.
Right.
And, but it's one of those
works.
Of course, because it's human nature-ish,
right?
And all this human nature-ish sort of stuff works as long as there's humans.
Right.
As long as there are humans, this human nature stuff is going to work. So if you understand the human nature part of it, that's if you're selling based on human nature, you're going to win. If you're selling based on a script, it's really hard, and you're probably not going to, because you don't understand the subtleties of what you're talking about. It's like you can make this all simple, but in order to make it simple, you need to kind of take a deep dive in it.
Right.
Just start understanding, and understanding what you're trying to achieve by whatever it is you're doing. Well, and yeah, they're good pieces that you can put in and understand. Oh, here I need to do a feel felt found. Here I need to do a tie down. And there's sort of a sequence, but that too you need to understand the flow of things, and like, okay, here, or even in the conversation,
right?
Sometimes, you want to put the feel felt found in the right spot, right?
Right.
It's only you're answering an objection. Somebody goes, yeah, but I whatever the objection is, yeah, I understand how you feel. And whether it's you feel it, you've seen somebody feel it, other customers in the same situation have felt it. Use whatever makes sense. Use what makes sense. And you can mash a bunch of examples together. It doesn't have to be exactly, oh yeah, your name's Betty. Yeah, I've never had any example with a girl named Betty. No. It can be so many things. But when you start understanding this stuff, when you own it, you get ahead of the curve. Otherwise, you're always behind it. You're always behind the curve, and you never quite figure out why. When you just speak the words, you have to understand the flow of what's going on.
Well, yeah. And if you just pay attention, right? Let's say outside of your career, period. I would imagine most people have more than one friend or more than one person they communicate. Do you communicate with everyone the exact same way? No, you have to communicate with people in a way that they can understand the information, right? Because the whole idea is I'm trying to get you to subscribe to my ideas, right? And my ideas are I want to sell you whatever I'm trying to sell you or do business with you. So how do I get you to understand? How I deal with somebody that maybe is real linear is different than how I deal with a real super creative type. I need to use different language. So the first thing is, when you're communicating with folks, is learn to recognize who you're communicating with. Once I understand who I'm communicating with, then I can understand what words to use. And I can tell you, there's been a lot of times in my life where I've misread that. The example we talked about the other day, we were talking about the guy that sold his trucking company for $60 million. If you heard him and his grammar wasn't the best, if you heard him, you would not think he is as substantial of a person as he really was, as he is. So it's like, you got to be careful.
Just watch the Beverly Hillbillies a couple times.
Yeah, exactly. Let me tell you a story about a man named Jed. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, it's just like, it's being aware and like really being perceptive of how people communicate with you. And then they talk a lot about mirroring, right? Like how they communicate with you is how you want it. And I don't necessarily believe that 100%. I always feel like you always want to be just a little bit here on top, because you have to be one step ahead of them. It's just the way it is. If I'm going to lead you is the lead dog in the back? Is the lead dog in the middle? No, the lead dog's in the lead. So if we're leading this, we have to be one step ahead of the rest of the pack, or the customer, because I have to anticipate what they're thinking the whole time. And that's how I know how to gauge where to descend this conversation. And I don't think people do. I think they get this script, and come hell or high water, I'm going to follow this script.
Well, that's they tell you, right? They tell you. I remember having jobs throughout time, and following the script, and it's like there's I don't know who wrote the damn thing, but
somebody who obviously has never sold.
Right. And once I started, being a little more freestyle, then I won, and I became, top 1, 2, or 3 guy always. But when I didn't, I was in the middle of the pack just like everybody else, because you can only polish a script to a certain degree. It is still a script, but when you start
Yeah,
right?
you could polish a turd,
you,
but it's still a turd. You know what I mean?
right,
Like,
right. Well, like Warren Buffett would say, right?
yeah,
We'll pull that. We'll just blame that comment on Warren Buffett.
yeah, right.
He goes, you can mix turds and raisins, but you still
got
have turds.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah, yeah. So you can only make so much of what you got, and then you go, okay. I need to. Okay, it's more like, remember you ever see Pirates of the Caribbean, where
right,
where the girl goes, I thought it was a pirate's code, and this is what you live by. They're like, nah, it's more of a guideline. Scripts
exactly.
are, scripts are more of a guideline, and like the what I've ended up doing is turning a script into just like it's almost like there's something that's square.
Right.
I just want to make sure that I hit. As I'm going around, and I go, okay, start. Got to do this. Got to do that.
Right.
Got to do that. Got to do that. And it's got to be tight military corners. I must do
right.
these things.
Mm-hmm.
If I do those things, and then I just,
however you get
conversation,
there.
right, and be mindful. Like you've
right.
got these 4 points that you really want to. You got to make. That it doesn't matter if this is somebody that knows you really well or is a total stranger.
Right.
You got to make sure on every one of these, if it's a sales situation,
right.
You must hit these things. You can't take shortcuts. You must hit all these things, otherwise it goes to hell in a handbasket. But how you weave those, together, that's really, you must hit the 4 points.
Right.
And how you weave it together is the owning it. And of course they give everybody script because if you just take the average person and go, hey, just go sell stuff. They go, I don't even know what to do, because look at the sales training out there. It's
terrible.
Not very good. And so everybody knows it's not very good, so they give you a script because any idiot can read a script, and then you just polish the script to your best ability, and that's as good as it gets. And the company is okay with that. They expect these certain numbers.
Right.
I remember when every place that, and it weren't like a gajillion of them, but there were a few over time where I got a job, like in college and whatnot, and selling stuff, and like a lot of college kids do, and they go, okay. And so in the interview process, I go, look, I'll just put me with your best person. I don't want the script everybody gets.
Right.
Put me with your best person, and I will be your best. I will become your best person.
Mm-hmm.
And they never did. They go, well, they do it a little bit differently, and we want you to follow a script.
Right. Well, because they knew, and I get it. Look, I get it. I get it. And here's the sad thing about, I think, sales. It's a low bar to get in, right? Like anybody can claim, oh man, I'm great with people. I can be a sales guy.
Right.
And then or
I'm a people person.
Yeah, I'm a people person. I get along with everybody. I'm a great salesperson. And then when you're a professional, like a real professional salesperson, the difference is crazy different. You can see that. It's a low bar to get in, but it's a high bar to become a real solid professional doing it.
Right.
And that's why the money, that's why in sales, 20% of the people make 80% of the commissions, is because that 20%, and the higher up you get, you become more better and better and better. You're using these things like feel, felt, found. And I like to example the box because, I've always explained it like tie downs on a linear scale where, you have to hit these key issues along the way. But sometimes it's not necessarily linear. It's like, depending on who you're talking with, they may understand enough that they'll drag you to a key point that you wouldn't even hit with a normal person till the end of the presentation, right? Or the conversation. But what you must do, and we're a big mistake that a lot of younger salespeople make, or non-professionals, is once they handle that big key issue at the end, they don't come back and tie all these up. They just go right for this close. That's a mistake. You still have to cover all 4 corners of that box before you go to close the sale out, because it all works together. You can't just close one corner. You got to do all 4. So it's
I think of it too like like you ever see like if you're looking right now, I don't see any on the software we're using, but when
the
people
sound bar?
speak Yeah, sound bar goes
Okay.
up and down.
Yeah.
And if you looked at it, if it made a line across, you go back to your linear point, because I think
Yeah.
it's there are points. I think, like, if because I think about it like you do too sometimes, where it's a line, and
Mm-hmm.
I need to do all these things, but it's not a straight line. It's
Right.
if I imagine the line at first, it's just from here to there, and there are a few points
Right.
on it I need to make sure that I hit along the way. But in between, there's
Mm-hmm.
there's speech, there's things going
Right.
on, and either I'm talking, they're talking, and they might derivate from that line a great degree,
Right.
and that's usually that comes from you asking an open-ended question and letting them go.
Right.
And then when you want to come back to the line, you ask them a closed-ended question. Oh, that makes sense. Or you ask them something totally different. Oh, I see.
Right.
So would you go left or right there? Or would you have done this or that? Or would you like
Right.
this? And then they come right back to the line, and now you ask them, and now a closed-ended question, yes, no, comes right back to the line.
Mm-hmm.
And now I might ask them something else, let them go a little bit, or one way or the other, off that, let them go a little bit, because I'm asking the questions and they're trailing off somewhere. I ask
Right.
them close the question, yes, no, come right back to the line, and we keep proceeding.
Mm-hmm.
So you can, however you want to think about it is right. You just need to make sure you hit those points, whether it's a square, whether it's a line,
Right.
and you let them do this stuff. But it's part of, I think it's part of understanding that there's things going on. It's not just a script.
Right.
It's just go brr, brr,
Mm-hmm.
brr, brr.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole lot of color. There's a whole lot of sound bar. There's a whole lot of hitting going around the
Yeah.
bases. There's all these things. It's like, it's not just reading the script. It's understanding the play.
Right. And when you are understanding the play and you're having these conversations and you're hitting all those corners, I think it's really important too to, people will give you a lot of things without saying what they mean, if that makes sense. It's like you have to look at all the hidden little things going on there. And it might be the words they choose to use. It might be kind of like their tone. Like I'm really, really tuned in. And I think most of my career's been, probably 70% done over the phone because technology and we can work anywhere in the world now. But in the beginning, most of it was face-to-face. So I've had the luxury of doing both sides. But when you work a lot on the phone, you really learn to hear things that you may miss because you don't have all those physical cues. Like I can't see your facial expression. I can only hear it. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? So it's really, and I know in a sales process, there's a lot going on. Okay, I'm critically thinking my way through this. I have my outline. I have my 4 points that I need to touch. I need to make sure that I'm listening and I'm observing. I know there's a lot going on, but, and I think it's one of those things like a golf swing, right? There's a million things going on in a golf swing. You can only really think about one. Because if you think about a million different things, you'll never have a finished golf swing that's real effective. So I think we all know kind of where our weaknesses lie too. Like, when my mouth is moving, my ears shut off. That's one of the biggest problems with salespeople. And then when their customer tries to say something because they're going, wait a minute, I don't understand this point right here. And I hear them just ramble through that hot opportunity to get them to interact with me. It's not me talking. That's not what closes it. What closes it is getting them to talk and asking the right questions to lead them down the path. But if your ears quit working, you're going to have a hell of a time closing a lot of business and doing business with people that are the types that you really want to do business with. So you got to listen. You still got to listen even though you're talking. It's just super important.
You brought up something interesting too on the phone, and we've dealt with a lot of salespeople who do things in person, a lot of people who work on the phone, and so how do you know? So you want me to be paying attention to what you're talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you know that? Because you can see me on a call like this,
right,
but you can't see me if I'm on my phone, right?
Right.
How do you know that I'm not, as you're droning on about whatever the hell you're talking about, and I'm half paying attention? How do you know I'm not, looking at
Right.
other stuff and paying? and paying attention. How do you keep me on track?
Well, simple. You ask questions, right? And when you initially get on the phone with someone, there's super high engagement. There's super high back and forth, and the time between points is very limited because people's attention span isn't that long, right? Especially now. Attention spans are getting shorter and shorter and shorter. So I always ask, like, let's say I'm covering one point, right? And I'm covering that point, and I might 3 or 4 times during that point go, I mean, does that make sense? You see what I mean? I'm constantly, and you hear it, and then you listen to the lags between these questions, because if there's a long lag between these questions, then I got to ask them an open-ended question. Tell me what part about this doesn't make sense to you. Tell me, because now they're forced to interact with me. If you're talking 90% of the time on the call, you're going to fail. So it has to be like a 55-45. That's how it has to be, and that's creative. I mean, that makes sense, right? Right? Of course, right?
Yeah, it does, Chuck.
Yeah, sure, thank you. So you constantly, do you see what I mean about that? How this could be, that would be beneficial. Because do your guys do this too? And then I'll ask them some other, maybe a little bit of an unrelated, you always got to, it's like fishing. It's just like fishing. If you've ever fished, you reel and that line's tight, right? You don't just keep it, don't you go forward like this and you keep reeling to take that slack out, then you pull, then you reel, then you pull. It's the same thing, but you're doing it with your words and the questions. Like that question is the pull. That's bringing them back in. And then me listening is reeling like this, right? And then I pull them back in. It's just, you got to keep doing that the whole time to keep their engagement. And if you don't have their engagement, they're not going to buy from you because they're doing, like you said, they're going, oh man, what's going on with Jimmy tonight after work? Whatever, you gotta keep them engaged.
Yeah. If you don't let them, because if you start asking them questions, they know that they better kind of stay on their toes because you might ask them a question.
Yeah.
Right? So if you just use a script and back to script, I'm going to tie that back in because
right.
Usually though, if there's a savvy script writer, they'll write questions into it to engage the other party. However, the person reading the script sounds like they're reading a script, and often the questions don't even apply. Oh, does that sound like it might work, Mrs. Johnson?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway.
You can tell a bad script because they're full of closed-ended questions. That's a bad script. I don't know how many scripts I've read for people that have joined us and they want to create their script so they can keep. And I say, don't make it a script. Let's call it an outline, right? So they'll send me their script and I'll read their script, and it's absolutely just full of closed-ended questions, yes or no. And I go, okay, hold on a minute. How are you going to learn your client if it's all just yes or no? You got to ask. And I like to ask an open-ended question early. The earlier I can ask an open-ended question, the quicker that I can start gaining information, right? Because as they're talking, and if you're smart, you'll be making notes. And the notes you're looking for things that tie into these key issues that you're going to be covering.
Right.
Because then you can use it. I don't want to say use it against them because that's not what it is. You can use it to shed a little light that this is a better way for them to go.
Right.
So as I'm
it's a concern. They said something, so you go, okay, I note that, because if you don't note it, I'm just going to remember. It's like a waiter who tries to remember the whole table's custom orders, and then you go, you did, you got, I got a lamb chop when I really wanted a tuna fish sandwich.
Right. Right.
Congrats. But yeah, you're right. Make notes. Make notes. Make notes. I know. I've seen you do sales, and you've seen me, and I've seen myself, and I see the notes. When you get done, it's like, good Lord, what does that even say? But there's you're almost you almost like you're an autistic kid or something.
Right.
When you're I don't know. That's probably not. But it's like, you get done. It's like, it doesn't look like they're all different. They all look unique. They all have unique, because it's a unique conversation every time. and you probably have your own sort of pattern of things, how you write and scribble and doodle and all those things. But the doodles are also things that are meaningful. They're hieroglyphics that help you understand.
Right.
Sometimes little pictures, like I draw in hieroglyphics sometimes because it takes too long, like shorthand, right? Because you have your own little short. I write in I can't read my own writing anyway, so it's a good excuse.
No one can read your writing, but yeah, I get it.
I know. But I don't know if we're giving people tools here, but it comes back to when you're talking to people, you want to ask a lot of questions, relevant questions. You want to you want to lead. It's called leading, and so you want to ask the right number of questions at the right time. You don't have to make it. And when a salesperson is asking you, like, can you just, like sometimes that they're going through this, and that they're they figure that they have to elicit this yes here or 17 yeses, whatever their magical silly stuff is, but what they're doing, and you go, God, can we just speed past that? I get it. So you don't want it to be, you've got to be back to being a good actor. You either understand what's going on, and you have a sort of a script. You have an outline. Here's how you want it to flow, and here's where you want it to go. That's one of the things too is that like when I've done sales training in the past, I go, look, let's just start at the end. Just stop. Don't. Everybody starts at the beginning, and I think that's we'll get back to the beginning. It's always going to start sometime, but what do you want at the end? What do you want at the end? And what are some choices that you're okay with at the end? And what if it, okay, so here's where I'm trying to go. All right, let's go back to the beginning. Now I know where I'm going. And I know that seems almost obvious, but, I have a conversation like at 4 o'clock today when I talk to a guy that I'm not so excited about talking about, but I want to get to the right end. I go, okay, how do I want this to end up? Where do I want this to land? I go, okay. I have a little, all right, here's what I want it. Here's where I want it to go. All right. So now when I talk on the phone, I'm going to go, all right, I've made a couple notes. Here's a couple things I want to hit. I have them in my phone, in my notes. I was on a plane yesterday, and at one point I go, okay, what do I want? Where is this going tomorrow? Where do I want it to go? And okay, so I'll bring up my notes and go, oh, that's right. And then I'll go, okay, I want it to end here, and then I'll start. And I think a lot of people don't, most people that it seems that after seeing hundreds and thousands of people selling stuff, that they clearly miss that, or they don't, I don't know what they're just starting, oh, hey, there's somebody. It's like, oh, yeah. I'm looking at my phone, crossing the street, looking at my phone, I get to work, and there's somebody. There needs to be a little more preparation that goes into it if you're going to do really well. If you want freedom, right? So this is what we're talking about here. Is always bring it back to the freedom challenge, like the fewest number of moves to get where you want to go. Right? How do you get free faster? It's like, oh, okay. Well, there's some of this is preparedness. What if somebody had a definition somewhere? Success is preparedness meeting opportunity. So if I'm prepared, I need to be prepared every time. If I'm a gymnast, in the Olympics or whomever, right? I'm gonna go through the process. What they call it, future referencing or something. I don't remember what it is, but you see them, right? They're going through, their routine in their mind and sort of moves before they ever do it. And these are what world champions do. So if you want freedom, which almost nobody ever gets, and it's not the thing here. You don't have to beat out a Chinese gymnast. You just have to win. You have to do the right stuff. And so it's preparedness meeting whatever opportunities, right? And then you want to queue yourself up for as many opportunities as possible. So that's one little key. One thing that you can start right now is just before you go into it, just do a little pretend you're pretend, Chuck, I know this will be meaningful to you. Pretend you're a male ice skater. And
pretend.
you've got leather and lace all over the place, and you're flowing, and you're just thinking about it before you go out there on the ice.
I do.
So it's before you go into, before the phone rings, before you make the call, before you see the person, just do a quick review. It doesn't have to be the whole thing. You don't have to do the whole play. You just go, okay, I want to hit these things. This is the end result. I want to hit these things on the way. Go.
Well, like in golf, they call it your pre-shot routine. Like if you watch a pro golfer, they'll do the same thing, like before every shot. And everybody's got a little different spin on it. And I've sold probably a lot more than most people and less than some. But, even today, after 35 years of being in sales and building and doing the things that we've done, I still do that when I got a lead that comes in, or if I know I'm going to talk to someone, like you're talking to the gentleman today, the CEO of that company. I still do that, and I still get little butterflies going before I hop on the phone with this person. And I welcome those because it makes me more alert, right? It's kind of like, all the studies say about like our DNA and like how we eat, and when we had to scavenge and hunt our food, we it's something internally because we were hungry, we were more alert because we had to be to go out and get something to eat, right? It's the same thing. Welcome those butterflies, be more alert, do your pre-shot routine, whether you need to do some recon or whether you just need to align your stuff, have your coffee, gear up. It's not, because when you get that person on the phone, now's your time to shine. You don't practice for the Super Bowl while you're there. You've practiced all season and done everything before you get there. So
we talk about game time, right? When it's game time, you're on. And there's a good point too. It's practicing,
right?
Practice. One of the comments you made before is most people in sales, it's a low bar. Anybody can get into most of these. Go get a real estate license, go get whatever. You can get into any of those things. And what we do in the credit card processing business, you don't even have to have a license.
Right.
You just show up, and if you can fog a mirror, you don't even have to.
Right.
You can be a vampire and get a job with most credit card processing companies. It doesn't matter. They go, here you go. They'll go out and you can make go out and do this. You can make a bunch of money. Pat you on the back, and away you go. And if you come back with something, God bless them. They don't care. They're just recruiting the hell out of people.
Right.
And so if you end up being, and you don't know the situation that you're getting into, but if you want to have success at it, you probably want to practice it, and not during game time, and not, like if you go to work, this is the time of your life, right? I mean, we're alive right now. We're alive,
right?
So how do you want to get the best return out of your every heartbeat, right? And it's maybe that when you're up to bat, it's not practice. When you're up to bat, you're up to bat.
Right.
And so you've been practicing before you've been at the pitching machine and all that kind of stuff. You've been thinking about it. You've been watching other people bat. You've been watching videos of people batting.
Sure.
All the different. If you really want to get free. If you don't want to get free, don't do any of this stuff.
Right.
Just don't do any of it. Just go and show up and
plug into a deal and make sure
you
spend every dime you make. Just go plug in, and then you'll be fine. You'll never be free. That's great. But I like what you said. Like, how do you get free with the fewest moves possible? That's no better words have ever been said, right? The fewest moves, because I look at it, and I go, man, I probably got a good 25 summers left, right? How do I want to spend them? I don't want to spend them like in not getting free. I don't want to spend them doing 10 moves when I can do 3 moves and get the same end result. Because there's so much more to do. Take care of yourself and do it right.
Right. Well, and those, the 7 other moves. Okay, so instead of using 10 moves to close a deal, if you can use 3 or 10 moves to get free,
right?
Or you can use 3 moves to get free when it takes most people 10. But usually people don't have time to do 10. 10 never happens.
Right.
They just keep struggling because they don't take the time to understand this away from game time. Mm-hmm. They don't they don't really try to understand the craft, right? I'm thank God other people, let's say, I had a shoulder surgery. I'm glad that guy, he seemed like a good surgeon. I would imagine he just didn't go to class, and then after he's done, go home and, I don't know, watch YouTube or I don't know what he did, but maybe he did. Maybe he watched shoulder surgery videos, right? But I'm glad that these people really take an interest in their craft,
right?
Because now I'm much better, and some people will transfer that to freedom, but or connect back to freedom. They want it,
right?
But they don't do the stuff, but they don't know what to do, right? So if we do frame it, and that's if you look up in the description of Freedom Challenge on this YouTube page, it'll say how do you do this in the fewest number of moves? How do you get free in the fewest number of moves? And that's what nobody talks about, right? They talk about the big stuff that nobody quite understands. But if you go, all right, how do you really do this? If I can get free in 3 moves and have 7 moves that I never have to make. Well, can I get free 3 times faster?
Yeah.
Can I do?
Yeah.
Which is what happened to us, right? So how do you? So instead of doing 8 accounts a month, which is solid, 10 is rock star.
Right.
We'd do 20, 30. So you make a lot more, or you can compress. Like most people think of this as a career, right?
Right.
Freedom isn't a career. Freedom is a project.
Right.
Like, let's get free. And then, of course, then the living it is also a kind of a parallel project.
Right.
But the making the money part is just a project. It's not a career. I'm not signing up, and going, well, I've got to make the donuts for the next 40, 50 years. No,
Right.
You can, if you get after this and you go, all right, how do you get free in the fewest number of moves? All right, now we're starting to think. We're looking at, because imagine if this was a game, any game of strategy that you like to play. Imagine how it feels to play Monopoly, or how it feels to play chess, or whatever your strategy game is, Uno, whatever your game of strategy is. Imagine if you use that mindset of things toward your work. What if you made it a game? What if you went, all right, this thing, this freedom thing, this is a game.
Right.
So now how I'm going to go about my work is very strategic. And when we talk about there's a way, if you use it strategically, you can create, fill in the blank. There's a way when you use it strategically. And so this is what we're talking about. This game, make it a game. How do you get free in the fewest number of moves? How fast can you do it?
Yeah, and what's really interesting in that concept too is I read when like Texas Hold'em became like a thing, right? Remember back, that's probably 20-something odd years ago now. I mean, that was a big thing. Everybody was playing Texas Hold'em. Everywhere you went, it was Texas Hold'em. And so I read a book that was written by Doyle Brunson, who was one of the pioneers of, he won the first couple World Series of Pokers, and he's got a lot of accolades, right? And he said, he goes, with most poker players, because they don't understand the game enough, your moves can't be that complicated because they're too dumb to fall for it. If that makes sense? It's like so you have to change. I think people make
they're not smart enough to fall for it.
Right, they're not smart enough.
They're too ignorant to fall for it.
Right,
it's like
they don't recognize anything. It's just they make it a game of just whatever. But and it's the same thing. I think people overcomplicate it, and even in their communication. And once we talked about like $10 words or whatever, 10-cent words or whatever. It's like, man, don't do that. Keep it really simple, because the more simple you keep it, the fewer moves you need to have, and then you can get there 3 times as fast, right? So don't overcomplicate it. Just keep it.
Right. No,
simple.
We talk about it being like cookie cutting. One, it's like, if you really know your craft, if you want to make it as simple as possible, but to make it as simple as possible, you need to understand it deep. It's a deep dive to find simplicity, because that's when you understand most all of it, and you go, okay, if I understand most all of it, then I can make it simple.
Right.
That's who was it? Leonardo da Vinci said the ultimate sophistication is simplicity.
Yeah.
But to make it as sophisticated, like you were talking about Texas Hold'em, you have to understand it deep, so that you can make it so you know that your moves are simple moves and very, very good. These are the moves I need to make. This is how I can do it simply, and it's going to and then when you understand the simplicity of it, then it's just we talk about it being cookie cutters.
Right.
It's just how fast can you roll out the dough and stamp these cookies out, because that the cookie cutter that you're using is, at least right now, it's the absolute simplest, best way to do it. And you just go after it like in an industrialized fashion. You turn it into a factory, and you just, how many of these can you do? And that they're high quality, simple.
Well, remember Shelley that worked for us years ago? This was probably this is probably 30 years.
That was a long time ago.
That was a long time ago. And back then I was the guy that was doing most of the sales, and that was early on in our career starting this. And we all sat in this big room, and her desk was probably, we could probably high five each other if we reached over.
It wasn't that big a room. Don't think of it was an open room.
Right? It was an open room. Somebody's phone. But the interesting thing about that is she used to she used to not make fun of me. She used to go, you know what? I know. She goes, I know when you get a potential client on the phone, she said, I know exactly how I can like recite the conversation over here. I know exactly how it's going to go because we figured out the way for it to go and we cookie cut it. We did the same thing over and over and over again. The same, I used to say, hey, how's it going today? Great. Are you working hard or you're hardly working, right? And she used to make fun of me with that every time. But it was so freaking effective when you called to start getting information out to people and start building those referral networks. And it's funny, she called me about a year ago and she's like, yeah, my husband and I were wondering how you're doing and how's everybody, how's John, whatever. And she brought that up on the call. She goes, I remember sitting with you and you did I knew exactly how every call was going to go, but it was super effective. It was super, super effective. So, if you do it right and cookie cut it, you can make your life a lot easier. Man.
Yeah. Well, you took the time to understand, back to the Da Vinci-ness of it, right?
Right.
The ultimate sophistication. I remember when you started doing this, and you're going, all right, what about this? What about that? What about this? What about that? Nobody ever has asked that many questions.
Right.
That anybody I've ever dealt with.
Right.
They ask 20% of the questions. You asked, as many as you did, but most people ask 20%, and they never even came close to the amount of production that you were able to achieve.
Right. We wrote a lot of business.
Nobody. Not even close.
Right. We wrote a lot of business. It was fun. It's still fun.
Well, you know what? And there you go. It can be. That's why because it becomes a game, right? And the number of contacts we made, it was a game. It's if you happen to find the book I wrote, Rewire, there's a part in there. It's like you see a little tally sheet. Oh man, winning to me meant X number of meaningful connections every day. And so I knew, because I had a little bit of experience at this point when it was really, hammer it, pedal to the metal. I knew that this number was, when we talk about the fewest number of moves to get free, I knew that these were good moves. They were the best moves I knew how to make at the time.
Right.
And now, how many of them can I do? And so you don't equate that to the fewest number of moves. Well, when you know that these are the right moves, then you don't have to do all the other ones that most people are floundering around doing. And you hear them, they come to you and they go, well, what if we did it like this? And not that I'm close to it, but you hear it and you go, yeah, I understand, but we can have the conversation, let's explain. Let me ask some questions, and you'll see where it goes. And of course, you have to have that conversation, because you can't just go, no, it's not going to work. Just do it like this.
Right.
They have to understand, and so they go, oh, okay, I got it. But I guess that's part of the reason that we're here, right? Is to help people see. Okay, here's when you're finding your own way, that you go, okay, what's like, the simplest move I can make, the best move. It's not rocket science, right? It's you do have to understand your game. If you're going to win the game, any game, you need to understand the game. And so 100%. Your game, a lot of it, you're not selling, and so the game is often, there might be some technical aspects of it. And those are good to know. Like if you're selling insurance, you should understand your products. I get that. And if you're selling financial stuff, you should understand that. And if you're selling whatever, you should know what it is.
Right.
But you're not selling. You're selling to people.
Right.
And so it's good to know about your product, because when you're dealing with people, but you really need to. What most people miss is the understanding dealing with people part.
It's the people part.
If you understand the psychology, you own that. You can sell it. I don't care what you want to. So if you understand the psychology part of things, and now you go, okay, I want freedom. Well, what does freedom mean to me? It might mean you need to change what you're selling.
Right.
For example, I was talking with my nephew a couple weekends ago.
Right.
Talked with my nephew and his girlfriend, and they're both in real estate, and they're in Houston. And I think about like what they're doing, and I'll use a realtor over here. probably even a better example, or two good examples. One, the gal's a really good realtor over here. She's been here forever, a lot of success. She's got a lot of connections. But and she's getting older, and now she's a grandmother, and she's her kids are nowhere near here. Her kids and grandkids, who she wants to spend a lot of time with, are, I don't know, how far is Albuquerque from here? I don't know, 1,000 miles. So, it's a long way away. And so she's like, I miss them. I get to see them, over Christmas, and then I don't see them. And it's like, it's like tears her heart apart, right? But she goes, yeah, but my work at my business is here.
Yeah.
I can't go to how am I going to recreate this? And so she's stuck. And so so she's at the one end of her career, and now I see my nephew and his girlfriend at the very beginning of their careers. They're in Houston. I don't know if this is where they want to be. I don't know if this is, and right now I guess they think it's okay. And, one is from there, one isn't from there. Are they going to want to go somewhere else for a while? Are they going to want to go somewhere else permanently? And if they do, they're going to run into exactly what this realtor ran into. Is like, if they've built anything at all where they are, that's kind of a challenge to move. To move it, but they're young. They don't know if they're going to want to move somewhere or not.
Right.
But how? So I would, if I were going to ask them anything, I might want to say, well, how could you put this together in a way that allows you can be here, you can run around and see people in Houston, or how could it work if you were wherever you wanted to be? How would you build it so you could be wherever you wanted to be? How might you do things justice? How could you test to do things a little bit differently? Imagine yourself being able to be in the south of France for a year and still sell real estate in Houston. How could you do that? And they go, I can imagine. They go, I don't know. But if you did know, or what would be your first step thing that you might want to just test? Your first step. What might it be? I don't know ultimately how it's going to be, but so it's not like let's change it.
Right.
Let's just start
testing it,
figuring out how to do it, and then once you have it figured out, you can be in Houston, you can or you can be in Dallas, you can be in Austin, you can stay in Texas,
right?
But you don't have to be where you are if you don't want to be where you are, and that's well. Let me ask you: do you think that's a version of freedom?
What's that? Being away and being able to sell when you're out of
being able to be wherever you want to be.
Yeah, that's a big version of freedom. It's one of the reasons why I love what I do.
Yeah, and that's I think. Well, let me ask you: do you think most people never take that into consideration?
I would say 99.9% of the people never do. And I'm going to be honest with you. When we started this, that wasn't on my mind then. But what happens is you get older and maybe more wherewithal, and then you get out and experience, and you go, I don't want to be, it's kind of like working because you want to, not because you have to. It's a big difference, right? And that's a sense of freedom in itself. It's like, I do this because I love it and I want to do it. But being able to be anywhere in the world you are and still do your job, man, that really opens up. I'd rather have more choices in life than less choices. I'll just put it that way. It's a big, big thing.
Right. And if it's nice to have choices.
Yeah.
I think some people I see, because as you get older, you see people around you, and they're going, I've only got 10 years left, and I go, or you start hearing this. You start hearing this when people hit about 50. It seems they hit 50, and suddenly they start reflecting, looking at life a little bit differently. They're closer to the end than the beginning. They're a long way from high school and college, and they're into this thing, and they've been doing it for a long time. And it's like, God, I wake up and I'm tired. I don't want to do it. I don't want to. And then so they start resenting their work. Right? They don't like it. They hate it. I've got a good friend who retired a couple years ago, and he's not. He's probably almost exactly your age, Chuck. And he'd been working for big corporate America, towing the line, doing the right things. I always worked there.
Right.
Worked there for the last 30 years or whatever it is. I think probably had a couple jobs out of college, got this one and worked his way up and quite a ways. But they sent him off to Japan. He went to Japan. It was supposed to be for a couple of years, but COVID happened. Anyway, he got stranded in Japan for an extra year. So he was in Japan for about 3 years. And then came back, and he loved it. Loved it.
Right.
And he sort of breathed life back into it, because he was kind of getting tired of it. Then he went to Japan. It's like, wow, I love it here. He's a foodie, loves all the... He came back to the U.S., and it was a very short time later. He's like, I can't take it anymore. I don't. I can't do it anymore. And he goes, look, I've got 2 years left before I, by youngest age I can retire, whatever it is.
Right.
I'll go to the office as little as absolutely possible.
Right.
I'll do the very absolute minimum, but I'm not going to do any of this stuff that I've been doing. I'm done. I'm going to coast it out. And I thought, okay. I thought, well, that's, I did a quick review mentally of our team. And
Right.
thought, I wonder how many people we have like that. And you imagine some of the people that show up that they show up and they do their thing. They show up as late as possible. And I think,
Right.
how could you, how could us, how could we, how could that company, how can this be better recognized, right? Or give people an out, how can the world be a little more freedom minded?
Right.
A lot of people, most people spend their, well, you've said earlier, 99.9% of people don't really look far enough ahead to really design their career, their work, to really fit where they want to go. And they spend the best years.
Yeah.
Truly, the best years of your life. Ask anybody who's older if they're in the golden years, they'll go, no. Even little old ladies will curse. They'll go, no, I missed my best years, blankety blankety blank.
Right. Right.
And they go, man, but you hear it. They go, these golden years aren't that golden. Like the golden years don't really stack up to what they said they were going to be. They can't climb the mountain because it hurts too much. Or they're too tired. Or they just go, I don't really have any interest in climbing that mountain anymore.
Yeah.
I remember when I was just a lad. I would have climbed that mountain quicker than anyone.
Right.
But I didn't.
Right.
But I didn't. So, so that's why a lot of talk about freedom. It's like, how can you, what would freedom mean, right? So as we're getting near the end of our time here, what would freedom mean to you? Like, what is it that you want to build? And a lot of people can't quite think that far, but if you think, all right, what's short-term freedom? What would short-term, what's something that that you could maybe build over the next, week? What sort of freedom could you open up in the next week? Even something within arm's reach, and if you did, how would that feel?
Right.
And now that's where you get to live, and you go, I figured that out, and then now you can small bridges, right? There's just small bridges. Think small bridges.
Right.
Big bridges are damn difficult, and you run out of money and steam and ideas, but small bridges you can do. Right now there are these things, small bridge, something within reach.
Mm-hmm.
What could you do this week, the next few days to go, all right, how could I? And then you get that, and from there, now you can plan your next move.
Exactly.
That's your strategy, right? Because sometimes you want to win the board game, but you also want to get that piece right there. You want to get Park Place or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's not that far away.
Right.
How can I get that? How can I get that? That doesn't mean ultimate freedom. It just means that. But once you have it, you've got that card. You go, all right, that's one little thing that I've got.
Yeah.
So,
which gives me more choices. So
right.
Every
and
time.
It feels good
more
too.
Choices,
it feels
more
good.
Choices. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. 9-day difference for sure.
One of the things that when Chuck was talking about script, he was talking about. Well, no. He was talking about feel, felt, found. Thinking about feel, felt, found, because after, like, if you're laying this out, usually what a feel, felt, found does is sets you up for a tie down. So you go, man, boy, do I understand how you feel, blah, 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 blah. And then, I understand how you feel. Somebody else felt the same way. And then you go, hey, let me ask you, does this make sense? Bam, it's a tie down. And then you go, and now you can launch on what you can go with an open-ended question or another closed-ended question. Tie down, boom, and then you can move on to the next thing. Is how, if I was going to diagram how it typically goes, that's typically how it goes. Would you agree, Mr. Fowler?
Yeah, definitely understand how you feel, felt the same way. Here's what I found. Does that make sense? You can see how that would work for
right.
you.
Does that make sense? It's a tie down.
Right.
So what if you just end? I understand. If they found this, you got to go somewhere because that's not the end of it. They found this. Okay, where do I go now? You go to a tie down. Does that make sense? Yes, it does. Okay, now I have permission to go forward.
Yep.
So we can. I guess we just covered it.
Yeah, I guess, right? So true. I mean, the thing is that it's so freaking simple, but it works like unbelievable just in just how you communicate with people. If you just
there you go. You use the word simple though, but it's simple because you've taken a deep dive into. You've taken a deep dive into it.
Right.
It's not simple for people who haven't taken the deep dive.
Yeah. That's
Da Vinci would say, look, the Mona Lisa, whomever did it. Yeah, it was Da Vinci, wasn't it? That was simple. All I did was this. Or when I carved that thing that's a masterpiece, I did 900 of those things. It was simple. It wasn't for me simple when I first started. I was a clumsy idiot, and I broke a bunch of stuff, and my master beat me with a ruler, and I didn't understand. I cried myself to sleep, So he didn't understand, but he became like, all right, let me not just do a bunch of these. Let me do a bunch of these and understand. Right. What am I doing? What does it mean when I hold my chisel this way or that way, or I hit down or up or sideways or
right.
It's like, all right, I want to understand the human nature. I want to understand my craft.
Right.
And most of getting free is understanding people. And then you can plug in, if you want to keep selling whatever you're selling, you want to change it, you can do that, because then now that you understand the psychology, the human nature part of things, because you're a student of it, you can plug in whatever you want to plug in.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting when you finally get to that point, it's like, and you brought up like selling things that, like, I could sell things that I know absolutely nothing about. I could sell water purification systems. You name it, I could sell it because I know the people, right? Enough to talk, to understand human nature and navigate around it. I wouldn't know. I don't know squadouche about all. Well, maybe a little bit, but I don't know all the finer points like a professional would know. But if you know how to deal with people enough. Product knowledge, unless you're into something that's really super technical, is really not a lot to the sales process at all.
Yeah, but because it's simple, because you know it, because you understand it, you own it, you're ahead of the curve.
Right.
It's simple because you understand the complexities of it.
Right.
If you understand the complexities of it, now, but most people don't take the time to understand the complexities of it. They just read the script. So it's back. The choice is yours. And you aren't going to learn it overnight, but if you start paying attention, like reflecting, right? One of the last episodes, I popped up these cards that I use: anticipation, adaptation, reflection.
Right.
So if you go, okay, when it's done, you go, okay, you review it, and you go, well, how'd that go? I wonder, you ponder it, like you wonder, and you review it, you reflect on it, how'd it go? What's something that I did that I want to keep? What's something that I never have to do again? I never have to do this again in life. I can throw that away.
Right.
I don't ever want to do that again. Okay, now we've gotten rid of some bad stuff, we kept the good stuff. Now the next time, when we're previewing, we go, okay, remember that last time.
Yeah.
Now going forward, I just remember the stuff that I wanted to just use. Let me do that. And then after you do it, then you reflect, and so now this is the rise of you. This is how you get to become who you've always wanted to be, how you get to live the life you've always wanted to be, because you're paying attention. It's not that big a deal. You're not that big a deal, but it's a big deal. It's simple to do, and one of those small things that make a huge difference.
Well, it's like you can steer your way out of trouble, right? Like I go, okay, because you learn, like, I need to ask questions that keep the conversation on this track. Because if it goes to this track, it's going to get awfully wobbly, and it's going to be really hard to control it from there. So you learn to avoid the pitfalls. It's kind of like being a fishing guide. You can't go over there. There's rocks underneath the water that you're going to hit with the prop of your boat. You can't go over there. You got to go this way. You kind of learn where things are once you really dive into it, and it's a lot easier when you don't have to pull someone off the ledge, by letting it go a different direction.
Right. Yeah, you don't have to, and I guess that pulling somebody off the ledge, that illustration it's like grasping at straws. You don't have to grasp at straws.
Right. Yes.
Because you understand it and you're playing it. You're leading. You're playing a game of strategy that you win. That you win more often than not.
Right.
But it's a game of strategy. It's a game of strategy.
Yes, it is.
And how many people actually win at a game that they don't really try very hard at, or it's the first time they're playing it, or the second or third? Not many, especially when you're playing. You just don't, unless you're playing with a bunch of other ignorant people. Then it's just dumb luck who wins. Right. And so, do you want dumb luck, or do you want to stack the deck in your favor?
Well, I think so. And plus, I hate, I want to show up like in a sales present. I don't want that guy to outsell me. He's manipulating, he's controlling the whole conversation, because that doesn't work. You you know what I'm saying? It's like, no, and sometimes you got to gracefully have that little power struggle a little bit, and then finally you take control. Because they'll.
Well, let's talk about that one real quick, and then we'll go.
All right.
Let's say somebody's really, because every once in a while you face somebody in a selling situation, and they're very strong, they're forceful.
Right.
How do you win that one? How would you go? Let's say you recognize, because some people, right, especially when they're relatively new, they face somebody who's that way, and they just get bowled over.
Right.
But somebody with experience, so you've got a lot of experience. So let's say you have a conversation, it's a sales conference, and they're brass balls, they're hardcore.
Right.
How do you deal with that?
Well, there's two things I try to figure out anytime I deal with someone like that. Number one is is it just because they're to the point and they're hard? Or is this some sort of fake bravado that if I land base their ass, they're going to get butt hurt and not do business with me? You got to figure out who you're dealing with. And if it's somebody that's just hardcore, straight to the point, I do the same to them, and I start asking them some tough questions. Oh, okay, well, in this, I'm saying it like this to illustrate what's going on in here. Oh, okay, well, if you have all the answers, well, tell me how this works then. And then they go, you know what? I'm going to slow my roll. I'm getting ahead of my skis. I don't have all the answers. I see you're not trying to be adversarial. You're trying to work with me here, okay? So you got to establish that respect. Look, I'm not going to be bulldozed, and you have to be very and you do it with questions. It's all you can do it for is questions. You can't tell anybody anything. You got to ask them questions. How you ask the question, and it might be the same question, but a guy that's got a solid ego and he's not being egotistical, you can be straight up with him. But a guy that's being egotistical and you still want his business, you have to be a little softer. And I'm not saying eat crow necessarily, but you have to be a little more gentle with that deal.
Let's do this one. Let's have this our topic for next week, because this is a deeper one.
Yeah, this is and I've got sales guys that I work with, or sales partners that I work with, that I've had to have this conversation with many a times. It's recognize who do you got out there. Is this guy just a hard-nosed, straight shooter guy? I love those guys. Do you know why? Because you can cut right to the chase, and there's no bullshit. is you just cut right to it. It's the guy that's got an ego problem. Those are the hard ones, because I don't like dealing with people like that, because I want to go.
Nobody likes dealing with that. But let's say it. Make a couple notes and let's do this on Monday.
Yeah,
This is a good one.
Yeah.